Okay, so are you ready to dive into the world of AI music? Because things are moving so fast, it's kind of hard to keep track of everything.
Yeah, it's moving at the speed of sound.
That's why today we are doing a deep dive on something really interesting, Robogroove.
Okay, Robogroove.
It's a Hebrew language podcast, and get this, the whole thing, the music, the host, everything is all AI generated.
Whoa! A whole podcast. That's crazy. I've heard about AI making music, but wow, a whole podcast.
Right, and so they have this AI host, Robo, and Robo's actually got like a personality.
Really?
Yeah, in one episode, Robo's like, yeah, I was created with artificial intelligence. My purpose is to host this radio show. When it's over, it's game over for me. They disconnect me from the electricity.
Wow. That's kind of dark, isn't it? Makes you wonder what Robo really thinks about all of this.
Yeah, it really does.
But like, all jokes aside, Robogroove and this Facebook group they have where listeners share music they've created with AI, it just shows how much more accessible this technology is becoming, right? It's not just for these big fancy recording studios. It's like anyone can be a music producer now, even a robot.
It's true. And speaking of pushing boundaries, Robogroove actually interviewed this Israeli musician, Zohar Barzilay.
Okay.
He's a drummer and a producer, and he actually uses AI to enhance his creative process.
Wow. How does he do that?
He talked about this program that he uses, Suno, where he can like type in descriptions like melancholy film score or like Bruce Willis action movie vibes, and it'll generate a track based on that.
Oh, no kidding.
And he even shared one he made called Fade Away. What I think is so cool about this is that he doesn't see AI as like a replacement. He sees it as this like collaborator.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really important distinction to make because I think there's a lot of fear around AI replacing, like, human musicians.
Hmm.
But for artists like Zohar, it sounds like AI is more like a new tool, like a new instrument. It's helping him discover new sounds and ideas that he, maybe wouldn't have come up with on his own.
Exactly. And he uses an AI model of his own drumming to like test out different rhythms and ideas. So it kind of frees him up to experiment more without having to, physically play everything.
Oh, wow. That's so
About
interesting.
that. And that's just one example. Like there are so many other AI tools out there now that can do things like transform your voice into an instrument, generate a custom soundtrack, even
Yeah.
write lyrics, but in the style of like, your favorite artist.
Oh, wow. That's
It's
crazy.
pretty wild. And some of these AI generated songs are so good that it's sparking this whole other debate about what authenticity even means in music anymore.
Oh, I bet.
Like, remember that song, Heart on My Sleeve?
Yeah, vaguely.
It sounded exactly like Drake in The Weeknd.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It like went viral and then it was like pulled from all the platforms because of copyright concerns.
Yeah, it really threw a wrench into things, didn't it? Like that song was so convincing and it really highlighted all those, legal and ethical gray areas around, using AI to mimic existing artists. Like on the one hand, you have people saying like, "Hey, this is just a new form of creativity, like get over it." But on the other hand, there are valid concerns about artists' rights and the potential for misuse with this new technology.
Totally. And that's where platforms like Spotify and YouTube come in because now they're trying to figure out how to navigate this whole new world of AI music.
Right, right. So how are they handling it?
Well, Spotify's CEO, Daniel Ek, he seems to be taking a very cautious approach. Like
Mm.
he acknowledges that AI has potential, but he keeps saying how important it is to also protect artists' rights. It's like he's walking this tightrope between fostering innovation and ensuring fairness.
Yeah, it's a tough position to be in.
Totally. And then you've got YouTube, which is like diving headfirst into this world of AI music with their Music AI Incubator project.
Okay, Music AI Incubator. Tell me more about this.
It's this collaboration between some really big artists and labels, and they're trying to figure out how to responsibly integrate AI into the music industry.
Wow. So they're not just reacting to it, they're actually trying to like shape the future of it.
Exactly. So it sounds like you've got like Spotify over here being super cautious, and then you got YouTube like jumping in with both feet. It seems like the music industry is kind of torn on what to do about all this.
Yeah, it's a real mixed bag for sure. I mean, you've got artists themselves who are all over the map. Some are really excited about the potential and some are, a little more hesitant, which is understandable. It's a big change.
Totally. So who are some of these artists? Like, what are they saying?
Well, you've got folks like Charlie Puth and T-Pain, and they're all about it. They're really excited about how AI can help push creative boundaries, They see it as a tool to collaborate with, to bring their ideas to life in new ways.
Which, I mean, that's basically what Zohar was saying, right? It's like having another musical brain in the room with you.
Exactly, like a musical partner who's always down to try something new. But, then you have artists like Charlie XCX, Billie Eilish, who are a bit more cautious, and understandably so. They're really stressing the need for ethical guidelines, like how do we make sure artists are being compensated fairly when AI is being used?
Okay.
It's a valid concern, right?
Right, because it's one thing if you're using AI as a tool for your own music, but it's a totally different story if someone can just be like, computer, make a Charlie XCX song without her consent.
Exactly. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have artists like Hosier who are, well, let's just say they're a little more skeptical. They're questioning whether AI can ever truly replicate the raw emotion, the human experience that makes music so powerful.
It really makes you wonder, what will the role of the musician even be in the future? Like, will they become more like conductors, guiding the AI to create their vision,
Yeah.
but not necessarily playing every note themselves?
Fascinating question. It's like instead of needing to master every single instrument, they're mastering the art of, communicating with AI.
So it becomes a whole different skill set.
Exactly. Yeah. Like think about the difference between a painter who, mixes all their own pigments by hand versus one who works with like a master paint maker to create entirely new colors.
Oh, that's a good analogy, actually. So you still need the artistic vision. It's just that the actual technical execution could be different.
Exactly. And who knows what that could lead to? We might see entire new genres of music emerge, blending, human creativity with AI's ability to process information in ways that, our brains just can't.
It's like how, like, when electronic music came onto the scene, right?
Right.
Like, all of a sudden, there was a whole new world of sounds that were possible.
Exactly. A total game changer. And just like with electronic music, I think there will always be people who embrace these new technologies and those who, prefer to stick with more traditional methods.
And, I mean, music is so personal. What speaks to one person might not do anything for someone else.
Absolutely. And that's what makes this whole conversation so interesting, right? There's no right or wrong answer, just a ton of exciting possibilities and, some pretty big questions to consider.
Okay, so speaking of big questions, we have to talk about this new Google AI tool, Music FX. Have you heard about this?
Music FX, yeah. It's like having a whole recording studio in your pocket, right? It's
Yeah,
kind of mind-blowing.
it is. It's like you can just like type in what you want, like give me an upbeat funk groove, but with like a little 80s synth in there, and then boom, you've got a custom backing track.
I know. You can even like hum a melody and it'll translate that into different instruments. It's crazy.
It really feels like these tools are making music creation so much more accessible. You don't necessarily need tons of expensive equipment or years of training to get started anymore.
And that's what's so exciting about it. Like, it's not just established artists and producers who get to create. Now, anyone with an internet connection and a little curiosity can experiment and, potentially discover their own sound.
That's like democratizing the creative process.
Exactly. And with platforms like YouTube actively supporting this, I think we're going to see some really incredible, innovative music coming out in the next few years. It's an exciting time to be a music fan, for sure.
Oh, absolutely. It's almost like overwhelming in a good way. Like
Yeah.
all the possibilities. Imagine like going to a concert where the visuals are all AI generated and they're changing in real time in response to the music and even like the audience's energy. Or like having an AI DJ that creates these totally personalized soundtracks for whatever you're doing or how you're feeling.
I know, it's mind-blowing. It's like the future of music is being written right now, and we have front row seats.
Totally.
Yeah.
And speaking of the future of music, we'll be back after a quick break to talk more about how artists can use all these crazy new tools, how the relationship between humans and AI in music is evolving, and what this all means for the music industry as a whole. So don't go anywhere. Welcome back, music lovers. Before the break, we were talking about AI changing the game for musicians.
And, we were just getting started. Because it's not just about the tools themselves, it's about how they're changing the whole creative process from the ground up.
Right. Like, remember that Israeli musician Zohar Barzilay that we were talking about earlier from Robogroove?
Mhm.
He's a perfect example of how artists are using AI in ways we never even thought of before.
Absolutely. He's a true pioneer. Remember how he created an AI model of his own drumming?
Yeah, it was incredible.
It lets him test out all these different rhythms and grooves without actually having to play them, you know? It's like imagine having a bandmate who's always down to jam, but they never get tired.
That's a pretty sweet deal. It frees him up to just play around with ideas without the limitations of, actually having to drum them all out himself.
Exactly. And that brings up a really interesting question about the role of the musician, right? Like, what will that even look like in the future? Will we see musicians become more like conductors?
You mean, like, instead of playing every note, they're guiding the AI to create the sounds they're hearing in their heads?
Yeah, exactly. It's like they're no longer mastering every instrument under the sun, but instead they're mastering the art of how do you communicate your vision to an AI?
So instead of being a virtuoso on one instrument, you become like an AI whisperer.
Right. I mean, think of it this way. Imagine a painter who mixes all their own paints by hand.
Okay.
Now imagine a painter who works with, let's say, like a master paint maker who can create any color
I
imaginable.
could already see where you're going with this.
The painter still needs that artistic vision, that creative spark, but now the way they execute that vision can be completely different.
It's a whole different way of thinking about making art.
Exactly. And who's to say what incredible new sounds and genres could come out of that? We're talking about blending the power of human creativity with AI's ability to, like, process information in ways we can't even fathom. The possibilities are endless.
It's kind of like when electronic music first exploded onto the
Oh,
scene.
totally.
It was like suddenly there was this whole new world of sound that people could explore because of new technology.
It was a revolution. And I think, just like with electronic music, there will be some people who fully embrace this fusion of AI and music, and others who prefer to stick with more traditional methods.
Which is totally cool,
Hmm.
because at the end of the day, music is so personal,
Couldn't agree more.
What resonates with one person might not do anything for another person, AI or no AI.
Absolutely. And that's what makes this whole conversation so fascinating. There's no right answer, just a million possibilities and a whole lot of really interesting questions to think about.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, is there one big takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with today?
You know, I think if there's one thing to remember, it's that the future of music is being written right now. As we speak, AI is already changing how we create music, experience music, even define music.
It's moving so fast.
It really is. And as this technology continues to evolve, I think it's going to be fascinating to see what new sounds emerge, what crazy new genres pop up, and how this whole relationship between human creativity and AI continues to, blossom. It's a wild ride, and I think we're all just along for it.
I love that. And you know what? It's a great time to be a music lover. So to all our listeners out there, if you want to learn more about the wild world of AI music, check out our show notes. We've got links to Robogroove, those AI music platforms we talked about, and a whole lot more. Until next time, keep your ears open and stay curious, music lovers.